afternoon.
Afternoon.
Welcome to the meeting. We'll all sit tight here a little bit until we can get, a quorum. Leo, I like your shirt there. Is that a gift? Yeah. Carla, you've always got a tie. I feel like ties are going away, but you're holding out strong. I like it.
Thanks, James. People say I look really young, so it's my way to kind of make me look a lot more mature than I actually am.
I think it's good. We when I was in med school, I was in the South, and one of the rules was you could wear scrubs between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. But as soon as 7 a.m. rolled around, you better have your tie on, or the chief of medicine would come looking for you. I don't know what his rule was for women, but that was the rule for men. When I went to the West Coast, that changed, and people wore their fleece vests all day, every day. A little more casual. California.
In Maine, the rule for women was you had to have your pantyhose on if you had a dress.
Oh, interesting. That's
which seems very old school.
Right. Although the tie thing and looking young and being in training, I remember that too. I was in the elevator and this patient was there with me, and they go, this was in med school, so I must have been 24 or 25, and the patient looked at me and goes, "Oh, it's really nice that they have a program for high school students to come to the hospital." I didn't know what to tell her.
Was your nickname Doogie Howser?
Oh my goodness, I was so excited when I got my first gray hair because people would finally stop asking me if I was old enough to be their doctor.
Yeah.
But I think that more has to do with the fact that I'm like 4'9 3/4.
When are you going to finish growing?
Yeah, that's... Well, my sister's 4'9 1/2, so I'm taller than her.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I will. Longing for the days when people ask me if I'm too young to be a doctor. That'll be coming soon, I'm sure. All right. Well, it is 3 after the hour. We've got 61 people here. Appreciate everyone joining. I think this is going to be a really interesting discussion that we'll have here. Marika, do you want to share slides? Probably best for you to do it, right?
Sure, I can share slides. All right. Can you guys all see that?
We can.
Okay.
Start up at slide 1.
All right. So this is the physician team meeting.
If you hit,
yeah.
Oh, I was going to do the first part. If you hit the slideshow button,
okay.
I don't think we practiced this, but
got it.
Okay, cool. And if you flip Marika back to the Google video chat window,
Oh, I can see it.
you can see it, and you can flip slides from there too, which is a new thing, I think.
Cool. That's awesome. We'll try it.
Cool. So welcome everyone again. Why don't we go to the next one? We're going to do shout outs, which we do every time. We're going to talk about a few updates. The bulk of the meeting is going to be focused on GLP-1 compounding, and then a few TextBlaze updates near the end.
right.
I always love reading these. If you're on Slack, there is a PlushCare reviews channel where you can see what patients are saying about us. It's noisy. Sometimes it's unfair. But sometimes it gives us really helpful feedback on things we're not doing as well as we could. And sometimes it's really rewarding to see people appreciate what we do. So I like these ones. Thank you to everyone on the slide and everyone who's doing good work, but not on the slide. So I love to see these. All right. Couple updates. I don't think Jess is here to give these, but we have an announcements channel, which is just sort of read only for putting important things in there. If you can't find it, ping Jess and she can make sure you're invited to it. You also, some of the important things are pinned there, like the directory, contact directory, and then after hours and weekend coverage information is pinned at the top. So you should easy access to critical materials. And then I guess an important note that we're asking ops to help us with IT, payroll, HR stuff, and that's not the right team to help. It's really, if you go to the directory, you can find people that are able to help. Cool.
All right. So the meat of the discussion here, and I'm sure this will generate a lot of questions, so feel free to ask your questions as we go through this. But basically, we want to talk about the options for compounding, particularly semaglutide for our patients in the setting of an extended medication shortage that is really kind of impacting patient care for a lot of our patients. So background on compounding. Pharmaceutical compounding is the science of making pharmaceutical ingredients into a custom medication. It has had a long history in the US, particularly it was the primary way of prescribing medications in the US for a very long time. Oh, somebody else is presenting.
Uh-oh, Simon. You're presenting your phone.
Sorry about that. How do I get out?
There, I think you succeeded.
I think I took over. I kicked him
Okay.
out. Sorry, Simon. It was the primary way of making medication, and then supply of medication through pharmaceutical companies has grown. And as a result of really using what's most familiar and the biggest source of medications in the country, a lot of us as medical professionals don't know as much about the compounding process, its regulations, its safety, and its history as maybe we should. And so we took this as an opportunity to really learn more about that process and see if we could find anybody who could be a safe partner for us in making these medications more available for our patients.
Yeah, can I jump in for a second on that? Maybe in the last slide. Yeah, I mean, I think I first heard about compounding, I don't know, when I was in training, I think 2012 maybe, when this big outbreak of fungal meningitis happened at a compounding pharmacy and hundreds of people around the country got sick. And that was probably the last time I heard about it for 10 years. And I just remember thinking, oh man, that's sounds dangerous, something I don't really need to know about, something I don't need to learn about. And I forgot about it. And that was until earlier this year in the spring when we started getting questions around compounded GLP-1s and whether that was something we did. And if you follow the news about health topics, which I'm sure many of you do, started seeing things in the news about how compounded GLP-1s were being available. Maybe we saw stuff around how companies were getting compounding pharmacies were getting sued. There was some lawsuits filed. There was all this stuff. And it was at that time that we set a policy here, basically saying you shouldn't do it. Doctors shouldn't do it. It's not safe. It's not legal. It's something that we don't do here. And I think that was probably the right decision at the time. I didn't know enough to say anything else. And I think it was sort of erring on the side of caution. But as time has gone on and as these drug shortages have persisted, we thought it was worth, and as Marika said, we thought it was worth looking at closer and worth investigating and really figuring out, getting to the bottom of some of these questions that are out there. And I suspect that many of you had a similar experience. Maybe some of you know a lot about compounding, but it certainly wasn't part of my education. And so hopefully we can bring everyone along and all learn something today and figure this out. So Marika, I'll hand it back to you.
Sure.
Edify us.
So what I would say in this process is that I learned a lot about compounding that I didn't know was true. And since that meningitis outbreak, there have been multiple iterations of FDA laws and rules and oversight to compounding pharmacies that make incidents like that much less likely these days. And that was part of the exploring process that I went through to understand, what's safe and what would be an option for our patients. So in terms of common questions that we see, I sort of made this announcement last week, and these are actually a lot of the questions that I got from you all. So I want to make sure I try to address them today. Big questions is this legal? Are we doing it legally? How do you know that the drug is authentic and is exactly what you say it is? It isn't something else. It isn't a salt form. And what is the oversight of producing these medications? And how do you know that the medication that we're giving is going to be safe? And I think those are all great questions. So I'm going to try to make sure I address them today, but feel free to ask follow-up questions. And then the benefit, the reason we really wanted to do this is that it provides access to medications in a shortage. It improves access through lowering cost and cash payment options for patients who don't have insurance coverage. It avoids interruptions in patient care for the most part. At least the people who are currently on the medication, it avoids those kind of interruptions. And then patients are getting the medication from a safer source than potentially other people who, there is some unregulated compounding out there. There's lots of different degrees of safety around compounding, and we wanted to make sure that we were picking the safest source possible. So those were some of the things that we saw as a benefit when we looked into this. So the question is this legal? And the answer is that in the setting of a prolonged shortage of medication, the FDA produces a list of medications that are under a shortage, and those are legal to compound while the medications are in shortage. So that means for us that we are going to be compounding semaglutide, but not other medications at this time. And then oversight and safety. So there's a lot of rules around oversight, and I'm going to try to break these down into something that's somewhat understandable, but if this is not clear, definitely feel free to ask me later. So basically the FDA regulates larger compounding pharmacies under what's called the FDCA, or the Federal Drug and Cosmetic Act. And they have these rules around pharmacies that they break up into a 503A and a 503B. Just to give you some background, a 503A is a pharmacy that compounds medication in response to a prescription. And a 503B is a pharmacy that does bulk compounding for something like a hospital when they have a shortage of a medication. So Strive Pharmacy is our partner, and they are a licensed 503A compounding pharmacy. That means that they have state and federal laws that include the regulations set up by the FDCA. They also have safety and quality standards that are set up by the United States Pharmacopeia. I have a hard time saying that. The USP. That was actually done in response to a bunch of investigations about what are best practices around prescribing the medications, and those recommendations got put into place, and then applied to compounding pharmacies. So that's where list comes from. And then they also do have oversight and on-site investigation by state boards of licensing and the FDA. So both of those organizations will come in and inspect the pharmacies. We asked them all the questions around the rules for these different safety and quality rules. And on every count, I wish Nancy was here because she was the one who asked all the questions. She is the Accolade lead pharmacist who has 10 years of experience in compounding herself. And she sort of guided our investigation of making sure people had the right quality and safety measures in place. And what she said is that they exceeded every expectation on all of these safety measures that we asked them. And then furthermore, actually, the person who is running their safety program is somebody that she had actually trained for 12 years before she came to PlushCare. So she felt very confident in what they were doing. And then we visually inspected the site to make sure that everything, their sterile facilities were right, their hoods were operating correctly, everybody was in the correct PPE, the environment was meeting all of the environmental and air safety quality programs, everything was being disinfected, and it met everything that she would expect a site like that to have. And we definitely could see the sterile rooms and what everything looked like. So it was pretty helpful to see all that and to see that, you know, it's not just something in paper, but to actually see what it looked like. I went with her for the site evaluation. So then to further kind of ask the question, well, how do you know that the medication that you're giving is actually the medication that you think they're giving? So Strive Pharmacy partners with an organization or a company called Biopeptic. They are an FDA registered manufacturer. So it's the same type of facility that actually makes semaglutide for the medications that we typically prescribe by retail pharmacy. So they're all FDA registered manufacturers and they still all have the same manufacturing process. This company is not making a salt form or any other form. They are making an exact duplicate of the medication. They send it to a third party called Eagle Laboratories that verifies the authenticity and the potency of what they produce. And then they send it to Strive Pharmacy for compounding into the medications that we inject. Then Strive, when they do the compounding of the medications, it is in their sterile facility. And they will then take every batch of medication that they make, and they also send it to Eagle Laboratories for verification that it is the purity that they're saying, it's the potency that they're saying, and that we know exactly what we're doing. And they have that documented in their notes for every batch of medications that they send out. And then, so those were kind of the safety questions around it. So we kind of thought about, well, if we think we can do the safety, what's the benefit for doing this? And I think the biggest benefit for us was really around how much medication for treating weight management is needed and how hard it is to access for many of our patients. So obesity is a really rapidly growing problem in the US, right? 70% of the population has overweight, 42% is obese as of 2020, and I'm sure it's gone up since then. And so there's a huge need for weight loss to help prevent a lot of different diseases. You know, lifestyle modifications have been tried for a very long time in the field of medicine to try to combat obesity, and the problem has continued to grow. So much so that, you know, 70% of the population is still overweight. And so the great thing about GLP-1 medications is like statins being a breakthrough to prevent major cardiovascular disease. GLP-1s are really kind of the first breakthrough that we have as a safe medication that can treat metabolic causes of obesity and prevent diseases, right? Everything from cancer and heart disease to liver disease and so forth. So that was really why we felt strongly about trying to be able to offer this to our patients. And then the other advantages are, as we said, it decreases interruption. It makes the medication more affordable and easier to get for patients. And we think it's a safe source for medication. So the question comes up, well, if we think we're going to do this, then who are going to be our candidates for medication? So basically, it's really the exact same protocol that we've been using. We're going to have visit 1, we're going to have fasting labs, we're going to have visit 2. They're going to be meeting the exact same criteria. So, you know, if they're the BMI of 30 or the BMI of 27 with weight-related medical conditions, and then without any contraindications, which are the same contraindications. And then the one limitation to this is that they cannot ship to every state in the United States at this time. So right now there's 23 states. That includes the ones that are listed here. So if the patient lives outside of these states, we aren't able to offer the medication at this time, but Strive is actively applying for several more licenses, and that should be growing over time. So you will see new states pop up every week when we get an update from them about what states have licenses. The states that will never be on that list are California, Mississippi, and Louisiana. California is actually simply because they have very weird rules around basically compounding pharmacies being able to ship to patients. And it's a little complicated and we don't want to try to get into that. So that's why California is not on that list. And then what medications are going to be included. So it's basically whatever is on the FDA shortage list. I put a list of the medications that are here. So you can search the FDA shortage list, but currently it is basically semaglutide. It's Wegovy 0.25, Wegovy 0.5, Wegovy 1, and then Ozempic as 2.0 milligrams are the doses that are in shortage and that we can prescribe. We're not going to be prescribing tirzepatide because it's not currently in shortage. That could change in the future, but not right now. And then semaglutide or Wegovy at the 1.7 or 2.4 doses, and liraglutide. So those are not medications that we're going to be compounding for now. All of these medications that I just listed, the tirzepatide, semaglutide, and liraglutide, all of those should be sent to a pharmacy for either insurance coverage or cash payment by the patients. And then we kind of wanted to give you some information about how you can present this to your patients. So we basically want to say that the FDA drug is not commercially available. And given the shortage list, we are able to compound these medications for you. And then if you're interested in doing this, we have a partner, a pharmacy partner called Strive Pharmacy, and they can do it at a cost of $299 per vial to the patient. And we can offer that to our patients. One thing that I want to note, I'm sure many of you have thought about this, but the FDA shortage list is subject to change. And so the medications that we could compound could be subject to change. I think we should let our patients know that up front, mostly so that they can know, if it does come off the list, they may have to apply for insurance coverage of the medication or pay retail pricing for the medication. But we do think that these medications are going to be on we do think that the medications are going to be on the shortage list for a while, not just short term. So we think it is worth it to be able to prescribe the medications at least while they're available. And in answer to the question up there, yes, it's per vial, not per month. So I wrote a little diagram for you guys about what it would look like and when you can offer it. So if you want to offer it up front, patient knows that they don't have insurance coverage for a medication or they're interested in starting with this as a cash payment option, you can certainly offer it at visit 2. And just that's the first medication they're going to have. If we do that, they won't be submitted a PA, so we won't know if it's covered by the insurance. An alternative is to submit it to a retail pharmacy and submit a PA with it in visit 2. And then if it's denied, you can bring them back at visit 3. And you can talk to them about the options of either cash payment options or sending it for cash payment at the retail pharmacy or compounding medications as an option for them. And then I just wanted to sort of give you a brief diagram of what it would look like to do this. So the order is actually an order that looks just like how we're originally ordering Ensure scripts. So it's the brand name medication. So it's Wegovy, or in the 2 milligram dose, the 2.0 milligram dose. So it's the medication that's in shortage. This is measured in units. So patients are going to be drawing this up out of a vial, and with an insulin syringe. So everything is measured in units. I've written your text places, and SUNY-D's helped me here. And we have all of them, which give the dose, the units that you're administrating, the volume, just so that you can see what it is. And that this is going to be sent to the pharmacy. So you can use these text places to prescribe the medication. They're under S, COM, and then the dose. So 0.25 or S, COM 1, and you can have access to all those. The first two doses, the 0.25 and the 0.5 doses, come in a vial that is 0.5 milliliters. The 1 milligram dose comes in a vial that is 1 milliliter. And the 2 milligram dose comes in a vial that's 2 milliliters. So the units are always milliliters, and the quantity is going to vary kind of according to the dose that you're prescribing. And then they asked us to please compound with B12. They added, actually, due to medication shortage, if we could add that at the end of this box. I'll be updating our protocol so you can see that, but they added that request there. Here's some examples of just what it looks like written out, and what the different doses are. So 5 units at the 0.25 dosing, 10 units at the 0.5 dosing, 20 units at the 1 milligram dosing, and 40 units at the 2 milligram dosing. And that is there. It is compounded with B12. It's a very low dose of B12. It's actually 500 mg in 1 milliliter. So each injection is actually a very minute quantity, and the reason for doing it is basically so that when you're actually sending it out, it's not an exact copy, is pretty much the primary reason for doing that. But it's a very low dose of B12. If you actually go back in the literature, really interesting to note, actually a lot of patients who have obesity actually also have a lot of B12 deficiency. There's a lot of correlation, even outside patients who've had bariatric surgery. And so there have been kind of studies in administering B12 with various different weight loss treatments over the past. So I don't really see any harm in doing this from a patient perspective. In order to select the pharmacy, there's one pharmacy you can select. This is their headquarters. You're just going to put Strive into the text box. It pulls up this pharmacy, and you can just select this pharmacy. If they are getting different medications, you are going to be selecting different pharmacies for different medications, which can be a little bit of a tricky situation. But hopefully, once they kind of get going, it'll be a little bit easier to manage. We're working on some back-end improvements to that, but that's where that's how it's going to be prescribed. And then it'll go electronically. And the last thing is, I just want to remind you all how to store the medication safely. I'm happy to go over injections and all that stuff at some other time if you guys have questions, or later today if you have questions. But it is stored refrigerated. You should mark the vial with a sticker on the day that it's opened, because it's good for 28 days. So you should just let patients know, to document when they opened it so that it's not there for too long. Don't freeze it, and don't put it into direct sunlight. Yes, syringes and needles are included along with the medication, so you don't need to write a prescription for that. I'm going to stop there and give a little bit of a summary, but basic idea is that these are really needed for basically preventative medicine of obesity and weight-related medical conditions. And we want to be able to improve access for care for our patients. And we think that this is a safe and well-vetted way to be able to do that for our patients. And then in terms of compounding, we've gone through the rules and regulations. We've looked through what this particular pharmacy is doing for safety practices. They have all the third-party documentation that we would want to make sure that it's done safely. We've gone through site inspections. We think that this is, good, safe manufacturing, and so we're comfortable recommending it to our patients. And we think that, with all that vetting, we hope for you guys, it's actually just sort of writing a prescription to another pharmacy. And it's not too much more complicated or difficult. But one thing I would like to remind you is just make sure you remember to explain to patients how you draw up medication in insulin syringe, because that's a little bit different. I included a patient information document with some videos that will show patients how to do that, how to label the medication, how to store it safely. So that's just one thing that is going to be a little bit different. Okay, I'm going to open it up. Dr. Wontok, do you have any remarks or thoughts? And then we'll open up to questions.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Marika, for going over all that. There's definitely a plethora of questions here. Maybe I can read them and you can answer them. And
Sure.
So the first one I have is, can we have information about the compounding pharmacy at a patient reading level so we can, share patient instructions essentially about what is compounding and how it works?
Yes, actually, all those documents are already made. So after we finish this presentation, we're going to be sending out a protocol officially around compounding. We're going to be sending out patient information documents that you can send to your patients. And then we have everything that's in a patient information document actually prepared as a text plays so that you can include it as text plays at the end of your visit. So all of that will be coming.
Great. We answered some of these along the way. The video for how to draw up the medicine, did you mention that?
I did, yeah. I can play it for you if you guys want to see it, but I think most of you could just take a look at it. It's like 2 minutes long and it's pretty simple how to do it.
Okay. Flip asked, any reason not to prescribe a vial of 2 milligrams and have them use less units to last longer?
Yes, the biggest reason for that is when you are prescribing compounding medications, some compounding pharmacies will do testing to see post-puncture date, how long the medication is good for. And this pharmacy has only done puncture dates to 28 days. So if you were to prescribe it that way, we wouldn't have the studies to prove that it is actually viable for longer than that. And so that's why we're not doing that.
Are there any other ingredients in the compound besides semaglutide and B12?
Not that are pharmacologically active. I do think that they have to put it into an emulsion, but that's the question Nancy can answer better than I can. I'm going to have Nancy actually explain what that looks like better than I do, but not things that are active medications that are going to treat things. They have talked about in their formula adding potentially glycine, but that is not currently part of their formula at the moment. And I think that's still under discussion whether they're going to do that or not.
Is it compounded off of research grade semaglutide salts, such as semaglutide acetate?
No. So this is a compounded medication that's an exact copy. And it is it's not a research grade molecule. This is exactly the same type of company that makes the medication for the retail pharmacies. So it's exactly the same process.
It's the base, not the salt form.
Correct. Yes.
How often does the FDA release their FDA shortage list?
It's been updating about once a month, as far as I can tell. They don't really make an announcement when they update it, but you'll see things kind of come on and off of it. I've been checking it every week just to see if anything's changed, but nothing has changed for a while.
I think as far as things coming off and on, like the compounding pharmacy obviously has to monitor that as well, so they know when to stop making medicines. Talking with, I think there's some patient safety risk, right? That you suddenly stop prescribing a medicine 1 month and then the next month you can prescribe it again and you've got to switch back to retail, and like that flipping is not, I don't think it's good for patients. I don't think it's good for anyone. And so I think that as long as you're saying that and justifying that, hopefully documenting that, you're not at risk, right? If it turns off one day off the FDA shortage list and you prescribe it the next day, there's not a problem with that per se. Somebody raised their hand. Maybe we can answer that question. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I think they put their hand up. Does it need to be cooled during travel? What temperature range?
Yeah, I think keeping it refrigerated if you're traveling is a good idea. They just recommend, since after puncture, keeping it refrigerated. So, I think putting it on ice packs and roughly around, 4 degrees C is probably right around where you'd want it to be.
Maggie had a question around, if we change the pharmacy, it will cross out their previous pharmacy, and then we don't know what their previous pharmacy was. Is there a way to see previous pharmacies, or could we have multiple pharmacies?
I always just put that in the social history because I feel like that's the only thing that carries over. Sorry to interject, but I do that for a lot of things because sometimes we have patients who get certain medications that are sent to mail away pharmacies, but then I always want to have their local pharmacy in case they call and need an antibiotic or anything. So I think that, unless I'm mistaken, it seems like that would be a good place to put that if everybody's in agreement.
This is Suniti. I know with the SureScripts design, they were hoping to put in the name of the pharmacy, or at least some information about the pharmacy to which each medication was sent. I don't know if they were able to include that in the design, but I'll check with them on that. And then also the past pharmacies, both of those were requests that we asked for, and I don't know if they were able to code that in or not.
I was going to ask if Rachel was here by any chance, because she might know where we are in that process. I think that's been in process as a product design, just not quite available yet. So I think is the current hack, use what Panina just said, and in the future we're looking for a better product improvement to work on that.
When will this program start?
You can start prescribing these medications today.
Is there anything we need to document on our note regarding the compounded medicine?
No, I think the only thing you need to document is in the prescription that you are doing it for the shortage. That is the requirement.
Are there any states that won't allow this?
Well, California has very real rules about who can ship compounded medications to patients. So California will not allow this. And then because of Mississippi's advice to physicians or rules to physicians, we are not going to be doing this to Mississippi. And I think Louisiana right now is questionable. So we won't be doing this to Louisiana at this time.
What are plans for marketing?
So in terms of initial marketing, we are not going to be marketing this for the first 2 weeks as we roll it out and let people get comfortable with it. I think there's going to be a lot of sort of adjustment for all of us as doctors. We've kind of gone from the mentality of, this is not safe. I think a lot of us have thought that, to really kind of getting used to it, learning about it, feeling familiar with it. And so for the first 2 weeks, I think this is just a chance for us to start to prescribe it as we feel comfortable and get more familiar with it. After that, we are going to market it to patients as an option only in the states in which it is available. Of course, there's the possibility that somebody's going to post it in Florida and then somebody else shares it with somebody in another state where it's not available. So that's going to be something we're going to face going forward. But for now, I think the marketing is going to be around that. And then we are going to let patients know if the medication was denied and it was in a state where their compounding is an option, the denial letter that they get from us is going to say that there is an option to have the medication compounded if they would like to book a follow-up appointment, but it's only going to be in the states where this is an option for them. So that's kind of the initial round of marketing. Carlo, do you want to answer anything else about that question?
No, that was a great summary, actually, Mika. But essentially, we're going to hold off for a couple weeks. We have some things that we are planning. Most importantly, I would say is that we're working closely with our legal team as far as what we can and can't do, making sure that we are not, saying Wegovy or Ozempic and then giving them compounded semaglutide. So there's a lot of things that are very important that, our legal team's very much involved with this as well to protect us as physicians and as an organization. As far as what you mentioned, really there's two aspects of this is, bringing back old patients that we've had that their prior authorizations were denied. So we're going to send out emails that way and say, hey, we got this other option if you want to, come back. And then also from a paid advertising standpoint, we'll be starting to put paid ads on Google for it in a few weeks or so. But I think you mentioned a lot of things already, Mika, so thank you.
The other thing I would add, one amazing thing that our marketing team has done for us is all the patient education material that we are creating to say, how do you do the injection? Here's introduction to what compounding is. How do you store this medication safely? They are actually going to take that and put it on our weight loss hub. So it's accessible to our patients in a central location as well. So I think they're also really trying to provide, accurate patient education to help us make our jobs easier. So they are helping on that end too.
Great. A couple people raised their hands. Dr. Spenceley, maybe we can take your question.
Yeah, so I just wanted to express some concerns about the advertising portion of this and this idea of bringing back patients who have maybe had their prior authorization denied. The compounding being only for the low doses of medications or doses that are currently in shortage is not necessarily a solution for those patients and that they won't be able to continue treatment. or continue with treatment the way that it is intended. So it's not really helping with accessibility or treatment continuity for those patients. I have concerns about this idea of accessibility or expressing any language that says that we are offering medication at a discount, because accessibility here is a little bit subjective. $300 a month is still not affordable to a lot of people. And I just wanted to point out that tirzepatide is also on the shortage list, obviously for diabetic patients currently, but I don't know how that complicates things once Zepbound is on the market.
Yeah, actually, the doses of, I just checked the tirzepatide. It was taken off the shortage list just before it became FDA approved. So it was not on the shortage list as of this week when I looked for that. And in response to your comments about accessibility, that is true in that, definitely $300 a month is not accessible for a lot of people. But it is more accessible by far than the $1,000 a month cost of the retail pharmacies. So it's kind of a relative accessibility, I guess. It improves it, but it's not a fix for everybody for sure. And I do think that it is, I do think we all have to let our patients know that the duration of time that these medications are going to be available is definitely unknown. And we could be starting a treatment process for people that, we may not be able to continue if the medication became off the shortage list. And in that case, we will have to switch to a retail product or a cash payment or insurance payment for that. I think in thinking about it, we decided that these have been on the shortage list for a while. We think that they're still going to be on the shortage list for a while. And so given that this isn't sort of something that we think is going to go away in 2 months, we thought that it would be helpful to at least offer it for as long as we could, rather than not offering it at all. So yes, it's sort of a harm reduction model.
Yeah. So I really appreciate all those points. I guess I just want to be really thoughtful about the language that is used, because all of this just places additional burden on the physician to explain all this to the patient. And I think that's been a lot of the complaints about the weight management program to begin with, and how much additional work and speech it goes into these appointments in 15 minutes. It's a lot.
It is a lot. This is definitely something we've talked a lot about as we came up with this protocol, right? Should we offer it in visit 2? Is that too much information? Should we bring people back for visit 3? How much information can we distill in a 15-minute appointment? And I think that's really why the marketing team is trying to create that background information for us. And I think, that feedback around the language is perfect. And we are trying to use that hub as a way to educate patients and, be able to provide more information for the patients outside of the appointment too, because it is overwhelming, the amount of information that we try to discuss in these appointments. I agree with that.
Great. Pina.
So as not to also add anything that is overwhelming, but from the compounding, from the cross cover perspective, would it be assumed that if it's denied and then they have to talk about compounding, that the patients have a third visit, like you said, or if the patient is really like balking at that we should handle it on cross cover, or is that something that you want to discuss separately with the cross cover team?
I mean, I'm happy to discuss this going forward with the cross-cover team, but we decided, at least for starting, that this should be brought back for a third appointment, because there's discussing, what compounding is. As you pointed out, right, there's a lot of information you distill around compounding, at least initially, and, how to inject the medication safely. And we really want people to know, how do you give the right dose safely? And because it is different, the administration is different from the pens, I do think that having an appointment to discuss those things is important. So right now it is not something that we're going to be asking cross-cover to handle, but we can certainly talk about it in the future.
Great. Dr. Lay, you raised your hand. You're on mute.
Okay, thanks. Some of the patients have complained that they came to us because their compounding pharmacy wasn't able to keep up with the supply demand, and that they weren't able to get their medicines, and that's why they came to us. That's just something I wanted to bring up. I'm not sure how that's going to be addressed with this compounding pharmacy.
That is also a probably a better Nancy question. The general summary answer to that question is that they have really expanded their capacity quite a bit recently, and they have room to grow much more than what they currently are doing. And so we are not going to be close to meeting their demand, at least initially, at the volumes that we kind of initially predict. But I think that being said, of course, things can change in the future. Dr. Wontok, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're fortunate in some ways that we have the ability to control marketing, right? We can pay for more ads and bring in more patients, or if we can't get this medicine, obviously we can turn ads down or off. So we have sort of control over the spigot there, I think, is probably the answer. But we don't expect them to have a supply problem. And maybe anyone would, but they gave us pretty good reassurance that their facility is capable of producing this at a pretty high quantity. All right, let's keep hitting the questions in the chat. Is FOSA flexible enough to include a hard stop to ensure we don't prescribe this medication in states where it isn't, where Strive isn't licensed or permitted?
FOSA is not currently doing that. Cindy, do you want to jump in and say that?
Yeah, I answered it in the chat, but given that we're prescribing the original medication, I don't think that FOSA would be able to tell just based on it going to Strive that it is not approved, but I will ask the question for sure.
So the current answer to that question is it's not FOSA, it's actually kind of manual. But Alicia is checking all of these medications because she's also the one sending or charging the card for the patient. And so we sort of have a manual back check process currently for making sure that these are going to the correct state. So she's kind of pulling the medication with the correct state, making sure that we're sending them only to the states where it's available. Could that be revised in the process? Potentially, but for now, that's our process.
All right, I think there's a lot of questions below where I'm at in the chat, so maybe we can try and hit these rapid fire to some degree.
Sure.
If a patient's using insurance for coverage, they'll still be paying the $299 per month. Is that right? Using Strive Pharmacy?
Strive does not accept insurance for this medication. So they're just going to be charged on their card for that medication. No insurance is involved. They can not currently use an HSA. Oh, correct me on that. What's the HSA rule right now? They cannot use an HSA card yet.
They can file this through their HSA by filing a HSA claim, but they can't use their HSA debit card.
Yes.
Are you sending the video link? Yes, I think we answered that. Are we using Strive for any other prescriptions?
Not currently, but that is an option in the future.
If we're in California, we can't send it to a different compounding pharmacy, right?
So you can send the prescription to any state where Strive is licensed to send the prescription. So it doesn't matter where the patient is, it matters where you send the prescription to.
Yeah. What about using a different compounding pharmacy, like maybe one located in California?
Nope.
Yeah. I think we're recommending against doing that because we haven't done the safety verification and we're not confident about what the medicine actually is. And I mean, you're all physicians. You can, I suppose you can do that. And I think there are some patients filling our prescriptions at compounding pharmacies already. So to some degree, this is happening, but I think I'm less confident in doing that. And I wouldn't recommend it. Let's see. If a patient is on a border of a state and they want to ship across the border, is that allowed?
I think they can ship it to any state they want.
I think, yeah, if you want to, go pick it up in another state where you have an address, that is allowed.
Or a PO box, yes.
I joined late. My apologies. Do we have the option to opt out of this?
So the answer to that question right now is that this is kind of a warm-up period for the next couple of weeks. So I'm sort of asking everybody to learn more about it as much as you can in the next couple of weeks, and raise your concerns and ask questions and see if this is something that you think you're comfortable with. If after that period of time, once we start advertising, you're still uncomfortable, please reach out and talk to me, and we can figure out what to do after that. But I think in the next couple of weeks, I'm just sort of asking everybody to start with, just learn as much as you can about this process and this pharmacy and what we're doing here.
Do we have to send a separate prescription for syringes and needles? No is the answer to that. They come with the medicine.
Somebody asked, can we add B12 to the obesity panel? It's not currently added to the obesity panel. We could talk to Quest about that. Although once I actually did more reading about B12 and vitamin D deficiency and obesity, I've just started checking them anyway. And I found that pretty much everybody I've checked them on, they're really relatively low. So it's not a bad idea to add the orders. You could just add them as individual orders if you feel it's appropriate.
Can we do this initially and then switch to insurance for Wegovy later?
Yes. One of the advantages of actually having them ordered as a standard prescription is that they're going to show up in your EMR. And when we send our notes to pharmacies, it will show up in the note that we send to the pharmacy that the patient's previously been on those doses of the medication. So that is one advantage to us of doing it that way.
Some of these questions have been answered. Thanks everyone for answering these. Looking at 503A pharmacies, is there a limit to how much of a medication they can produce?
Yes. It has to be a certain percentage of their total medication that they make. 503B pharmacies are ones that actually make bulk orders of medications and then ship wholesale to like hospitals and purchasing organizations. 503A are doing it based on prescriptions, and they are a little bit more limited by what they can make. So their limit is based on the global amount of other products that they're making. So right now they feel like they're within that limit, even with ramping up their production. And then I think, if things change, that's kind of up to them. But so far it sounds like they're within their limit.
What's the turnaround time?
It is 2 to 3 days after the prescription sent.
Just to clarify, that's to shipping. So from 2 to 3 days to ship, and then it's next day, business day delivery. Strive recommends saying within a week.
Is Strive working with other weight loss telemedicine companies that are also sending a bunch of prescriptions?
Not currently that I know of. They're working with a lot of individual doctors and offices, but I don't know of any major telemedicine company that they're currently working with. But they might not necessarily tell us that.
Some patients come to us after taking compounded semaglutides that weren't effective for them or caused a lot of side effects. How can we advise them that this compounding is better than what they were using in the past?
I would really just, I think, explain that, there are lots of different places where medications can be compounded with different degrees of oversight and safety regulations, and that we're using a compounding pharmacy that does a lot of safety checks and verification of what they're producing and that their doses are what they say they are. And so by doing that, we feel more comfortable that this is the exact same medication as the retail pharmacy medication, and that the dosings are what we believe that the dosings are because they're verified by a third party.
Great. Suniti, I know we have a couple TextBlaze slides that we wanted to get to. Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. If you just continue, I think given the time, we can at least talk about the compounding TextBlazes and leave the rest.
I think that's the way to do it. Yeah, if you can. And as quickly as you can.
Yeah, can y'all just forward the slides, please?
I'm just going to present. Which slides are they?
Just keep going on
They're
this.
just at the end of this presentation.
Okay, so these are the links that we've created so far, and of course we're creating more probably today. This iSemcom is a link to the protocol that Marika just went over with us. The medication SIGs are here. It's /SCOM all for the dropdown, and then SCOM 0.25, 0.5, 1, and 2. The instructions are in there. So you'll see, if you use the dropdown, you'll see more information that won't then translate into the actual text blaze. It's just information for physicians. And the patient information is under /PSEMCOM. If we go to the next slide real quick, I'll just show y'all. There's some workarounds for using complex text blazes. I apologize that they're still not working. The engineers have asked for 2 more weeks to get them working, but I just wanted to show you how this is a complicated slide, but it'll be here in the presentation if you want to refer to it. Basically, the information is not staying in FOSSA. So if you want it to stay, you can use a complex text blaze. Those are the ones that make the pop-up windows, fill out the information, put the information back in FOSSA. And then if you just click Control A, Control X, Control V, it copies all the text, saves it onto the clipboard, and then pastes it back, and then it will stay in FOSSA. You can do the same thing with a Google document if you want to use a Google document instead of work directly in FOSSA. And the other way is to use the complex text blaze, and then before you insert it, just go back to the field where it started, hit a space, and then hit insert, and then we'll also make it stay. So we will work hard to try to fix this ASAP, because we know these complex text blazes are the ones that are most useful for people. Thank you. So we'll talk about that next slide at another meeting. Okay, thanks.
Compounding text blazes for you guys.
There's a question around who charges the patient's credit card, and the answer is us. We charge the card and we pay Strive for the medicine.
I just wrote another text blaze. It's /PHCOM, which is the pharmacy instructions. It says compound with B12. Yeah.
Will they only be sent 1 month vial with refills, or will Strive send more than 2 vials for 2 months supply if $299 times 2 is paid? So if the patient pays us $600, will we send 2 vials?
Yes, that's the maximum that you can prescribe. So you can only prescribe 2 vials at a time.
How much weight loss is expected with compounded med versus other agents?
So we're really asking you to please enter the vitals into the vital section as you prescribe these medications, because we do try to track actually how much our patients are losing from the initial weight all the way through their time with us, particularly at 3, 6, and 12-month intervals. And so the more you guys document that, the better we can actually track it. We expect that the weight loss should be the same, but we will be paying attention to that going forward. And if you guys could enter that information at every visit, it really helps us.
Yeah, and I think like this medicine is the same as Wegovy, the same as semaglutide. So we expect the same weight loss. There shouldn't be any difference. It's chemically identical. If patients are charged via PlushCare, do we make a profit? The answer is yes. We charge the patients more than we pay Strive for the medicines. It does not count towards the pharmacy deductible. That's correct. It was tricky to follow at the MedRx steps in FOSSA. Is it possible to make a quick video of the steps to help us, since time will be very tight?
Yes, we can make a video of that. It's also in the protocol that I posted that's on that link, and I'll send out to all of you guys, so you can either refer to the protocol or we can make a quick video of how to do that.
Please clarify that we can only order this for patients who are in states where it is licensed.
Correct.
That's right. The pharmacy won't ship a medicine to a state where they're not licensed as a pharmacy. I would strongly recommend a non-physician consultation prior to the physician visit with coordinators who explain the logistics and financing.
Yeah, we haven't actually talked about that at all. I think that's a topic for future discussion, for coordinating things like that. I don't know how that would play out or work from a technical perspective. So
yeah,
it's a good idea. We'll put it in the idea box.
Yeah.
talk
All
about.
right. I know we're approaching time here and everyone I'm sure has to go. There's a few more questions in here. Maybe we can answer these in Slack or something. I'm sure there'll be more that people think of as time goes on. I appreciate everyone coming and learning and asking good questions, and this is great.
Yeah.
Rika, anything on your end?
No, I think thank you all for coming and learning. I think I've learned a lot in this process, and I think, it's been really interesting about, what I assumed compounding medication was going to be like and what I sort of decided it was like in the end. And I basically just want to be a resource for you as you guys have questions going forward about, what we're doing and how we're doing it. So please feel free to reach out. If you want me to open up more office hours, I'll open more office hours. Anything that we can do to help you guys kind of learn about this and feel comfortable.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Have a
Thank you.
good afternoon.
Yeah. Bye.
Take care.